Going on, everybody? Welcome back to another day of SaberSim's DFS office hours. Today is Saturday, January 25th of 2025. And looking ahead here, we have a ton of DFS action coming at you over the weekend here. We have NFL, we have NBA, we have NHL, we have round 4 golf. So many different ways to get in on the action this weekend. So good luck to you in all your contests. For those of you who are new here, welcome. My name is Andrew. I'm one of the coaches over here at SaberSim. This is a show where we go over how to use the SaberSim app, answer any and all DFS-related questions. Get your questions in one of 3 ways here. First off, send us an email, support@sabersim.com. Second, post it live in the YouTube chat. Third way, post it in the office hour channel in our Discord server. If you're not in our Discord and want to get access to that channel, there's a link in the description of this video. You also get access to our similar channels, individual sport channels, and to get access to the rest of the SaberSim teams. Can't say enough good things about the Discord. But with that said, we do this show Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, and then we do this show on Saturdays here. Typically 12:30 p.m. Eastern, but I had to move it up an hour here, so appreciate you guys tuning in a little earlier than usual here at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. But with that said, let's get SaberSim up here and let's start answering some questions. So we got a number of questions, YouTube chat, Discord to get us started. We will start with those and kind of just work our way down the list here and then keep answering questions as they roll in. All right, Josh said, probably not, but is SaberSim only focused on NFL? NBA projections have been awful the last few days with most SaberSim users finishing near last place. That last part's a little subjective, I'm sure here. But if you are, having a rough go with NBA here, best thing you can always do is sign up for one of our build review shows, right? I bring your builds up on screen. I look at your contest selection. I look at your entire time, like, okay, hey, we need to focus on this. We need to focus on that. Let's try changing this. Let's try changing that. And, kind of reworking your process on the show and then giving you, very clear and clear feedback, actionable things that you can do to try and improve your results, right? So if you're doing that, if you're struggling, you could sign up for the show one of 2 ways. Send us an email. Let me know what sport and slate you want me to review and cite. Option number 2, post in the office hours channel in Discord. Let me know again. We can get you reviewed in the next couple days here ahead of all the NBA slates this upcoming week. So that'd be my best advice there. Second part of the question, NFL really doesn't take up that much of our team's time, right now. I mean, there's only, 2 games on the slate. It's weekly. Our team spends a ton of time on NBA. We obviously have our analysts who we hired. We have the 4 analysts working on NBA projections every day, as well as our team. So we take NBA super, super serious. And that's why I think the Build Review Show is going to be your best bet here. All right, next question. Hey guys, for simulations, is it best to use SaberScore? Also, what is a good SaberScore? Okay, good question. So let's build some lineups for the 2-game NFL slate coming up here. We'll just build 500 lineups. And we'll let these lineups run. And we're going to be using SaberScore here, so no need to go and set up a contest sim at this time. All right, lineups are loaded, right? We're in the post build with SaberScore, right? So 2 things. So is it best to use SaberScore? In our opinion, yes, right? The whole reason we created SaberScore because we didn't feel like projected score was a good enough ranking method for your lineups, right? What projected score is using, it's using the average points the players score and then adding them up, right? Well, in DFS, if you go and look at payout structures, right? 33% of the prize pool is going to first, 39% of the prize pool is going to first, 20%, 8%. A lot of the time it's in the double digits, right? So these payout structures are so top heavy that you really need to optimize your lineups to where your lineups can finish in first place in the top 1%, in the top 0.1%, right, of these contests. So that's why, grading it based on the average, we don't feel is sufficient enough. We do feel the average is important, right? So in our SaberScore formulas, right, you go in, you click this eye icon, you could see the variables being used, right? Some projection is a variable. We do care about that, but we also care about the lineup's 99th percentile. What is that, right? This is the lineup's top 1% outcomes. So what happens here, right, is like the same way you click on a player and then you could see, their graph here. We effectively do the same thing for lineups, right? The lineup goes into the pool. We go back into the sims and we say, hey, how did this combination, I think it's 10 players here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players. How did this combination of 9 players do across the sims? And then we effectively get a payout distribution for the lineup. So the lineup itself has like a graph. And then from the graph, we're able to say, okay, the lineup's top 1% outcomes, 1% of the time the lineup scored X, 1% of the time the lineup scored Y, right? And you can come in here, if you sort by percentile, it'll populate as a summary stat, and then you can hover over it, and then you can see the scores. So in 1% of the sims, this lineup scores 210 points. In 5% of the sims, this lineup scores 178 points, right? We care when the lineup does good. And then the good thing about lineup percentiles, right, is it's not just adding up all the player percentiles. It's not saying every player achieved their top 1%. It's saying this lineup as a whole scores this number 1% of the time, which is a lot more likely because player percentiles, Saquon getting his 1% outcome, and then you do times it by Mahomes' 1% outcome, times it by Cook's 1% outcome, and then it just becomes like a super long shot. And that's not always how you win DFS contests. Not every player has their top outcome, right? One of them might score the average. One of them might score like 75th. One of them might score 85th. 2 might score 95th. 3 might score 99th. You know what I mean? You always get kind of a mix there. So lineup percentile is super important. And then the last one, negative weight on average adjusted ownership. So we're basically taxing lineups with a high adjusted ownership, which is this column next to ownership. So what adjusted ownership does, looks at the player's ownership, looks at their range of outcomes, and then basically decides if this player is worth that ownership, right? And then if they are not worth the ownership, their adjusted is going to be higher than their contest ownership. And then if the player is worth it, then they're going to be equal or less than the contest ownership. So I actually think it's super interesting how Saquon has, 83% ownership and his adjusted is only, 84. It's like right in line, right? So even at 83% ownership, we feel like Saquon Barkley is worth it. So super interesting there. All right. Second part of the question, what's a good SaberScore? This, I wouldn't worry about this too much. The SaberScore is going to change, right? Because the builder is like each of these has a value, right? And then it is like I could add up all of the sum projection and then divide it by 2, which is like timesing it by 0.5, same thing. A good SaberScore for NFL is going to be different than like a good SaberScore for NBA, and you can't just like carry over a number, right? So what I would always do is just sort, low to high, right? So say we sort low to high. What I would instead focus on, right? You have 500 lineups in your pool. Try and stay in the top 25 to 50% of your pool. So what I mean by that is that your last lineup, right? You scroll down to the bottom lineup in your set. Say I need 20 lineups. After changing uniques, after changing minimax exposures, after doing any adjustments that you want, try and keep your last lineup higher than, 250, which would be half, right? So say I come in here and I apply some in uniques. Okay, look, at 4 uniques, my last lineup is 200, right? If I go to 5, my last lineup is 530, right? This is higher than 500. The builder builds like plus or minus, like 10% extra lineups, but it doesn't always show them, but they are available to you. This would be too far, right? I'd be like, hey, we're probably going a little bit too far here. I'm going to lower it back down to 4 to keep us in that like top 50% of the lineups in our pool based on SaberScore. So think about that more when trying to decide how far down you should go. All right. Good question there. Next one up. I wanted to ask for some clarification regarding the unique settings in late swap. If your initial build has 3 uniques, do you maintain the number when performing late swap, or do you adjust it given that the game has our okay? This question came in yesterday and we answered it on yesterday's office hours. So let me see. Okay, this one came in from Charlie. Charlie, I did get your question yesterday, and we did answer it on yesterday's show. So let me go pull that up real quick. All right. Yesterday's office hours was here. I don't think this is timestamped yet. Just so you guys know, past office hours, our team goes through here, looks at questions, and you can go into like the description, and then you can see like different questions, and you can like click on them, and it'll take you like to exactly where that question started. We probably haven't done that for yesterday's yet. That'll get done on Monday. But let me just see if I can find it real quick. Okay, it looks like question change here. Okay, right here. So looks like about like the 10:30 minute mark here. I answered this question yesterday. So let me drop this in the YouTube chat, and then let me just drop this in the Discord real quick. But give this segment a watch, and it should get you the answer that you're looking for. Cool beans. All right. Keeping it rolling. Next question. If you're late swapping multiple times in the night, do you create a new late swap build each time, or just refresh projections and ownership on the first one? Good question. So you only need to use one late swap build the entire night. So let's say, NFL slate starts, right? It's 12:01 p.m. here on the West Coast. I open up my late swap, or I guess this isn't like a great example because there's only one swap window. But the point is that you open up your late swap build, right? You run your late swap. Let's say that, there's another game, right? Well, once the second game starts, all you need to do is come in here and click the refresh projections icon. This will tell SaberSim, hey, check the time. Check what time it is. And then SaberSim will go, oh, it's 3:31. The second game has started. And then what it will do is it will gray out all the players whose game has just started, and then it will not allow those players to be put in and out of lineups. So the biggest thing is every time a game starts, come in, refresh the projections, and then once you do that, you can just use the rebuild lineups button, and then it will rerun your late swap with any new, if players projections moved up or down, with the locked players, and re-optimize from there. So you only need one late swap build the entire night. So good clarification there. All right, Mike said, can you show me how to get force in X amount of players at 10% ownership in NBA? Yeah, absolutely. So let's go to NBA for today. Looks like we got a 3-game early slate. Go to build lineups. All right, so this would be our build demo for today too. Why not? So let's say we're going to come in here, do 500 lineups, make a couple adjustments to projections. But let's say we want to add a rule, right? We want to force in, 2 players under 10% ownership, right? So I go to rules, go to add new rule. What other rule do we have here? Okay, these are off. Let's get rid of those. And we're going to say group auto, use at least 2, or you can even do exactly 2. It's up to you, how specific you want to be here. Maybe I want to say exactly 2. Right? Use exactly 2. Leave group by unchecked. Okay, super important. Go down to requirements. Go my own less than, and I'll say 10. Right? And then I'll click save. Now, one thing I always do recommend with these rules is come in here and sort by ownership, and actually look at like the section of players you're targeting. Right? So I'm targeting all these players in this range. Just put eyes on it and be like, hey, am I actually okay like playing these guys? Right? And I'm just like going off names like Derek White, Aaron Gordon, Clowney, Larson, Pritchard, Robinson, Rozier, Brown, Watson, Simmons. Personally, I might be okay with like one of them, probably not two. But if you want to do two, that's fine, right? You could do like whatever. Like I might look at that and be like, okay, maybe I don't want to force in two. Maybe I just want to, force in like at least one or something like that, right? And then other thing, right, is after you create the rule, the name won't change. So you just gotta, if you want, right, you gotta change it yourself. All right, cool. So rule set up, right? Going to kick off some lineups. And then, once design was built, we could spot check that, right? Like, hey, is everything working right? And kind of go from there. All right. Lineups building now. And lineups are done. And then come in here and look, right? Okay, hey, lineup 1, 7% owned player. Cool. Lineup 2, 9% owned player. Cool. 7% owned player, 7% owned player, 7% owned player, right? And some of these guys getting used more than once, but we're seeing the rule being honored, right? 4%, 7%, so 3%, right? So this is all working exactly how we want it. So some iteration of that rule, will work for you. The big thing is leaving group buy unchecked, super important. But now, let's roll with the build demo, right? So we're in here, we got our rule set up. We ran our lineups. Let's use SaberScore, right? We had a SaberScore question earlier. Okay, good. So, I'm using SaberScore. I have an average projection aggregate metric. I'm looking at my exposures and my leverages. I'm going to scroll down to the last lineup here. I built 500, and then I'm going to start increasing my uniques, right? So I was at 269.5 average projection. I'm at 267.9. So down like a point and a half. Only at lineup 33 here. Okay, this looks good. Still got some high leverages here, 53, 46. Might want to, go one further, right? Okay, projection drops a little bit more, but our leverages are coming down, right? So, we're basically, the let me say that again. So the reason we're able to get to the higher average projection is because we're jamming in these like higher value plays. Well, as their exposures go down, it's just going to lead to a lower average projection, which we're okay with, right? We're like, hey, we're okay giving up some projection in order to manage our risk to these players a little bit more, right? It's effectively what we're doing. And then we're still at lineup 74 out of 500. So, that's like top 15% here. So this is good, right? I think 4 is like kind of a good number. I'd be happy with the leverages that I'm seeing. We're taking a stand on a couple players here. Kalelware at 41% ownership. We're getting to more of him, and then Daniel Gafford. Little bit of leverage on Nikhil Alexander Walker, not that much. But all these guys have pretty high ownership, and they just seem like really good plays. So SaberSim's getting to a lot of them. So 4 feels like a good number to beat, right? You can go higher if you want. You can go less if you want. If you'd rather be like, hey, I'd rather be over, I'd rather have the higher leverage and maintain the projection. That's cool too, right? So this would be what a build demo would look like for me. And then I'd make sure that, I'm here to late swap at the later windows as needed. So that's what I would be doing. Build the lineups for NBA for today. All right. And looks like we are all caught up here with questions in the office hours channel and Discord. So appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll be back Monday, 4 p.m. Eastern for our next office hours show. So until then, everybody, take care. Good luck. Thanks. Bye.